What's going on, guys? I wanted to make a quick video about, a hiking experience I had a few years back. It's probably like 4 years at this point. Now, mind you, I've been to this hiking trail many, many times. It's in Sugarloaf Mountain. It's a beautiful place. I've been there probably a handful of time with friends, and I've probably been there more than a dozen times by myself. And I normally hike about 8 to 9 miles. um, so I always look forward to coming here. And on this particular time, something really weird happened to me that since then I only went back one more time, but ever since then I really don't want to go back. But it started off very, very strange where as soon as I started hiking, I started to realize that there was a large amount of acorns that were falling off the trees. From what you can see here, the colors are starting to change. It's late September, so fall is kind of around the corner. And I kind of figured maybe that's why the acorns were falling, right? Maybe it's that time of the year. But what really got me unsettled was that there really wasn't much wind. There's a little bit of wind that's captured on the video, but for the amount of acorns that you hear at the beginning of this one clip, it's just really very eerie, to the point that I had to just film. But it was going on for several seconds, and I thought to myself for a second, there must be an animal walking, crawling in some of these branches and knocking them off because there were just so many. But when I looked up, I didn't see anything. And in the video, I'm kind of like looking around. I feel very unsettled. I feel like there's someone there, but the trees are becoming bare and I don't see anything. So this is the beginning of the clip. I'll play it again without me talking, but you can clearly hear at the very beginning that there's just a lot of acorns falling down. And as you can see in the video, there really isn't a lot of wind. It's very minimal, so it really doesn't explain things. Here we go. I'll replay it again. Now here I just had to zoom in just because for whatever reason I was just feeling very uncomfortable and I kind of felt like someone was standing there, but you clearly don't see anyone. Anyways, it just didn't feel good. So on this second clip, I have my lens zoomed out because I forgot to to undo that. But anyways, I'm walking, and as soon as I put the camera up and I start turning to the left, you're going to see very quickly a shadow kind of starting off, and then it kind of goes down to the ground. And I'll replay it again right there. I don't know if you caught it, but that's okay. I'm going to replay it several more times in different speeds, so to kind of highlight. But I'm kind of looking all around and I'm feeling really, really uneasy. And it's at this point, you're going to hear like a thump. And that's because an acorn actually hit me on my stomach. And that's why I ended up cursing. Of course, I bleeped it out with a little dark bark.
Fucking acorns.
I'll point it out to you again. And here's the shadow. You're going to hear the acorn hit me in my abdomen. Right there. So I'm going to play this in several
King
times slow
acorns.
motion. I'm going to decrease the length of the video so you can see the shadow. And I'm kind of putting little red arrows. Hopefully that helps. But the reason why this felt so weird and so kind of unnatural, just because the amount of acorns that were falling off, and I couldn't really explain it because clearly there was not like an animal, like, jumping from tree to tree. It really wasn't that windy. And quite honestly, there were several times where it felt that someone was actually throwing acorns at me. And that's what started off at the very beginning of the trail, like just feeling like someone was not too far away from me. I felt like I wasn't alone. And then it really felt like someone was throwing these acorns. Obviously, a lot of them were falling off the trees, but there were numerous occasions where I would feel it, on my leg, on my knee. Granted, I am kind of short, but there were numerous occasions where the acorn was landing on my hip. And I just felt like, okay, if an acorn kind of hits hard enough with enough velocity, and if it bounces off of like a rock on the ground, it's gonna, either ricocheted a little bit or just bounced off, and maybe that's why it's hitting me on on my legs. But when the acorn actually hit me on my abdomen, it was very clear. It felt like someone is throwing them at me. They're just not just falling off from the tree. And that's why I felt like really, really creeped out about this situation. So for me, I think the biggest thing that was very unsettling from the get go is that I tend to arrive early in the morning, about 7:30 a.m. This is not a national park. This is a personal, like, this is private property. It's privately owned. They open up at sunrise and they close at sundown. Um, and because it's up in a mountain, cell phone reception is very, spotty at a lot of times. If you do get in trouble, there are rattlesnakes, there are bears. If you get into trouble, if you get injured, hopefully you are in a spot where you do have cell phone reception. There are no park rangers. Um, so you would have to call 911, and let's hope for the best that you are aware of your current location. So anyways, when I arrived at 7:30 in the morning, there was probably only like two cars in the parking lot. And it's not until about 8:30 or 9 a.m. that more people start to arrive. So the actual like amount of people that you see on the trail, for me at least, it's around 10 a.m. And then you start seeing less people around 2, maybe 3 p.m. because most people cut the corner. I went, as you can see on this map, I went around. That red line is pretty much, I'm going in a loop. Most people sort of, that's the west view. There's a lot of views that you can see, and a lot of people cut corners. They take the shorter route just so they can go to the scenic views, hang out, have a little picnic, and then head back to the car. So that's why you have a high traffic area starting around 8:30, 9 o'clock when people arrive. They kind of hang around, look around, and then you see them a lot on the trails shortly after. But then around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, people start leaving, especially when the sun starts to go down. And I started to immediately feel like someone was near me and constantly around me. As you can see, if you're on the trail, it's fine, but if you're looking right or left, it's pretty rugged. And you could clearly see if there's someone, at a distance, but I could never see anyone. But that constant nagging feeling, I'm not alone, I'm being watched, and constantly feeling like someone's throwing acorns at me. Like they're not just falling from the trees. It was just so eerie. Always listen to your gut. Unfortunately, I had to go through the entire loop because there's a certain section where I could essentially turn back around and go back, but I kind of figured where if I were to turn back around because I'm going in a loop, I may not encounter anyone because, again, I'm going in a loop. Most people are kind of cutting through the middle to go to a scenic view. So I just had to push forward and just go through the 8, 9 mile loop. So um, that's when I kind of decided, you know what, I'm not going back. Simply because it's not, again, it's not a state park. There are no park rangers. It's private property. Um, and the amount of people, it can get pretty crowded in the summer months. And like I said, people do show up early in the morning, but not as many. And because it's a mountain and you have, a lot of miles there, you could easily start early in the morning, and by the time that you hit like sort of the more high traffic areas, you might be dodging a lot of the foot traffic. So yeah, let me know what you think. I mean, obviously it's heavily wooded where you do see a significant amount of shadows on the ground and on the trees, and there's plenty of daylight. I just found it sort of very weird that something can cast a moving shadow like that. I take a lot of short videos, and I've never seen one actually move like that. The only way something could cause a moving shadow is essentially something big enough that's actually moving. And even though I am physically moving the camera from one from one side to the next and literally doing a 180, you don't see any other moving shadows. And that to me is what made me very uncomfortable, because again, you have enough daylight going through this wooded area, but it's not enough daylight to cause a lot of moving shadows. You're going to see a lot of shadows, of course, out on the trail. You see them, against the trees. But yeah, it's just, yeah, the way that it moved, I keep replaying that video over and over, and that moving shadow is moving faster than my movement. And that's kind of what made me very uncomfortable. Let me know what you guys think. Um, it's just creepy. I'm trying to be logical. There's enough trees, there's enough sunlight. It could be just a shadow from a tree, and I'm moving. But it really doesn't explain how an acorn can actually hit me in the abdomen. It felt like it was thrown at me. It didn't come from above me. So yeah, it was just creepy. It was a creepy day. Anyways, talk to you later.